They made a claim on our private data. Who got to decide that they got to lay claim on all of the data? And like you have all of the apologists for like the tech industry by saying, oh, well, it's convenient. But like it didn't start like that, surveillance capitalism. And Shoshana talks about like kind of this idea that like, they really, at the start, they had access to all of this data stuff and like they weren't using it. The original pledge at Google, if you've heard this part of the story, I think it's at the beginning when she talks about this. The original pledge at Google was kind of just like, oh yeah, we just want to be the best search engine. And like that failed. And like they were in financial stress. And like, so they were like, what are we going to do? And then so like they started using the data exhaust. So the extra data that they had left over from the process of people going on their search engine, and they weaponized it. And then like that became incredibly lucrative. Like they were in a mortal battle with Yahoo and some other big search engines back in the day. And like, who uses Yahoo now? They've obviously second place in that history. And so like, it developed into something that's really, really evil. And like, it has been able to develop to such a level of evilness and depravity because they have deliberately worked in the shadows and kept us away from it. Like if people knew half of this stuff, like the sense that I'm getting from you, Undead, if people knew half this stuff, they would demand satisfaction kind of thing. And like, they'd be upset and want to change the system. But revolutionaries like us have been banking on people being upset enough to want to change the system for a long time. And like, I don't see that coming anytime soon. It's the business of power and control. It's going to be profitable and desirable for anyone who understands and is capable of benefit from it. Look, I think the key there is anyone who understands. And so, like I said, like they've deliberately kept this stuff in the shadows for a long time. She talks about people in, Google and stuff like that who are like, sending each other memos and writing down correspondences that are like, if people knew this kind of stuff, like, they'd never accept this. They'd think that we're like, it's creepy, like blah, 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 blah. We must keep this private. We must keep this game to ourselves. We can never let the public know this. And so like, that's how surveillance capitalism has like kind of developed and become so evil, just monitoring people and stealing their information. Like they made a claim on our private data, and like, famously Shoshana will say, who got to decide that they got to lay claim on all of the data? And like you have all of the apologists for like the tech industry out there for surveillance capitalists, because this is the ethos and the ideology that has been driven into anyone who watches the Watchmen. And like, like the thing is, like people will protect them and apologize for them by saying, oh, well, it's convenient. Like we get a free service, and like this is just the trade-off for that. And like, that's like looking at it in a very binary way, in the sense that like, okay, you can have your tech wonderland and you have it with surveillance, or you have no tech surveillance and no tech wonderland kind of thing. You can't have both. And it's just like, well, and who wrote that rule? And who made that game? Who defined the terms of that game that you can't live in a tech wonderland? Like we cannot live in a super advanced society based on technological ubiquity and like absolute digital connectivity without actually having to be surveilled all the time. No, it was, the Googles of the world, it was the Facebooks of the world that were kind of like, oh, well, like, we claim all of this data in the name of private interests, and like no one put up a fight because no one knew what was going on, and they deliberately kept it in the shadows so no one knew what was going on and demand any of it. But we don't have to live in a world where like the only way to live in the tech wonderland is to sacrifice all of your personal information, like personal information you don't even know exists about you, like like biometric data. Like we were looking at something, me and Jag, in a lonely stream one day, we're like, looking at this thing that this report put out by Manila, like the Firefox people. It was a report on like car manufacturers, like Western car manufacturers, and like she describes them as like surveillance vehicles, surveillance devices on wheels. Like cars now, you don't buy a car because like it's profitable for a car manufacturer to make a vehicle so you can get around places in luxury or something like that. No, they make these things so they can monitor you. And like, you know, one of the things that came out of like, you know, there's the brief on this report, the executive summary, was like, you know, every time you get in the car, they're weighing you. Like, I don't even know how much I weigh, let alone on a daily basis. Imagine if every time I got into my car, Toyota or something like that, it was like, oh, Mr. E's put on a few kilos, the fat bastard, he must have had a big night last night. Like, you know, like they know so much about you, it's almost, like I said, incomprehensible. And like that incomprehensibility transfers because like they get so much power and they get so like drunk off the control that they have over society, they end up with stuff like the network state. And here we are. Who watches The Watchmen? I don't know. The Coast Guard? Such a good quote. My theory is government gets a cut from the dirty business profits from everyone else. Well, actually, let me give you, like, because we've been investigating this for like, you know, a few weeks now, and I've been looking into this for, I don't know, a few years. But like, it's not that they get a cut. It's like, and she explains this in the book. It's like they wanted to surveil the population, and they can't do it overtly. Governments can't do that overtly. There's too many safeguards in place. There's too much regulation. There's a constitution. There's like, you know, there's rights and expectations, like separation from like, you know, a tyrannical government and all that sort of stuff. And so like the state wanted to surveil the population in the wake of 9/11, and so like who else could do that for them but the private sector? So they developed infrastructure, you know, in coordination with tech universities and like, you know, the CIA and like, you know, intelligence services and agencies. They developed infrastructure, like digital infrastructure, and we just like gave it to the private sector and were like, you know, we've been working on this, like, but like, you know, we can't really use it for the means that we want, which is like total information awareness, as they call it. So like you do it, and like you just help us, like, by when we need to, we'll get the information that we want to get access to. And so like that was the marriage of convenience between the state. Like I'm sure they get a cut somewhere, like if you're talking about monetary cut, but the cut like I'm talking about is like they get to surveil the world's populations, and they'll do it vicariously through the tech sector.
Remember, I am, you are, we are a mystery.
I am on Patreon. Please follow the link in the description and sign up for free. We are trying to build a revolutionary community over there. So go become a member for free and join the conversation. If you can contribute financially, that would help a lot.